Well, thank you for tuning in, folks. So today I'm getting the opportunity to interview Redmond, rather. And Tim is the CEO of Redmond Growth Initiative, which is an organization designed to help you grow your profits, grow your business, and grow your life. And I really want to hear about that third part, especially through Tim's coaching process.
Yes.
Now, he's also the president of Redmond Leadership Institute, and I'm sure that's going to come up as well, because that's a nonprofit organization that they work in developing communities to help reach, restore, and release leaders to tap their full potential in their organizations, in their communities, in their countries. And Tim is also the author of a book and I believe a coaching series on Power to Create. So we're going to hopefully somehow we'll find a way to get all of those in.
Yeah, let's do it.
So here's the question we always start with is tell us a story about someone or some group in your life that was the real difference maker for you, that you look back and you're like, oh yeah, they played such a critical role and they're the reason why I'm successful today.
Yeah, I love that question. You did give me a warning that was going to ask that. And it's really hard to narrow it down to one. I'll kind of have in order of people that I've worked with and make it real short. First of all, I'm one of 11 kids, and my parents either loved sex or they loved kids or both. I don't know, just good Catholic family. And but my dad was a chemical engineer and doctorate, PhD in chemical engineer. And one of the things that was key in how I look at life, he said, Tim, the challenge with solving problems is most people do not adequately define the problem. And so just taking the time to define the problem is really a cornerstone. And, it's like, well, yeah, but I want to be solutions focused. I know, but you can't pretend the problem's not there. Let's define it. Let's break it down. Let's make it conquerable. And I've got a number of other people. There's another guy by the name of Tim that had started this software company. And he and I grew it up to about 400 employees, and we end up selling to Intuit. So I learned huge lessons from him, and just on the management of a company and how to do it well and how to do it right. We maintained north of 20% profit.
Wow.
And at one time we had $26 million cash in the bank. So just making sure, I like to say, with cash you're positioned for power. So there's a number of other people that I can mention, but those are just amazing people in my life.
I love that. And yeah, invariably, there's never one person, but we always start with that. I start with that question because I want to remind everyone that that's really what we're focusing on here is interdependence. I get to interview a lot of cool people, get to throw out a lot of cool ideas, but at the end of the day, it's about how we help each other succeed.
Yeah. So I love that. I think one of the keys to my success, we've had a level of success, and we have a 10x and a 100x vision. I'm 61. Last year I wrote a 25-year plan, business plan that 10x'd our coaching business and created a 100x on a new company that I'm launching this year. And so I love the people's input in my life. And so it's really important to find experts to help us. I've got 4 teams or 4 coaching organizations helping me, a coaching organization. I've got all the answers, but maybe I don't. Right. I know what I'm really good at doing, but there's 4 areas that we're wanting very specific help in. And so I'm hiring that expert. So I love that interdependent thought here. It's the way the best get better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Oh, wow. We could spend the whole interview just talking about building teams. It's tempting, but I want to get into your story. So I know part of your story is overcoming some struggles early in life, and that really became something you built on for your success, and now in helping other people and coaching other people through transitions and difficult times. So Can you take us back and just tell us the story of how it all began and how that drives your work today?
Yeah, well, when I was born, I actually had a cleft palate, it was like a double cleft palate, and there were some other complications, and so the doctor told my parents, "Hey, we don't expect this boy to last through the week."
Mm,
So they rushed me to the priest to get me sprinkled or whatever they did,
right.
and most of those guys are really, really good. I'm thumbs up. I'm not critical of it. You know, everybody has their own issues, but this guy had an issue that was, he was holding me, looking at my deformity, if you will, or my handicap. And it's like he announced a curse over me. He said, "This boy will never be a priest and he'll never be a public speaker." And it's like I lived under the power of that curse,
Right.
where I was massively shy. You know, I had a number of operations. I would get so nervous, I would stutter, I would slur. Kids would make fun of the way I spoke, and I just went more and more into my turtle shell, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that, and then another, I was in an accident with a brother of mine, and he was, unfortunately, he was killed in the accident, and
Mm,
I'd hit the highway on the other side where our little car went tumbling, and hit the highway head first. And of course, he was killed instantly. I was left for dead, and the doctor said, "Hey, Tim probably won't survive the night, but if he does, he won't be the same. He'll be at best a drooling vegetable the rest of his life." And so there's a lot of, I had to actually, in this process, I came out of the coma, survived. Hate to give the power punch here too early in the story, but the idea is I had to learn to read and write all over again. Here I was,
mm,
15,
yeah.
and just the frustrations of that. And I did have to rebuild my mind, and I think there was, divine healing mixed with
Mhm.
doctors helping out and me just working my rear end off, and my dad helping me out quite a bit with just teaching me how to read again. And so life brings this challenge, and it's like Dr. Adler said, Albert Adler, in his study of inferiority complex, is like there's two responses to the challenges you face. Either it's a stepping stone or it's a stumbling block. And
Right.
so through the help of that interdependence of some really key people in my life, I've looked at these challenges as stepping stones. And so I'm not sure if that's what the part of
No,
the story you wanted me to
that
share, but
is,
yeah.
no, that's exactly it. That's really great. It is interesting to me. I hear your story, and well, I'll tell you what it made me think of is the intelligence expert and memory expert, Jim Quick. I don't know if you know his story, but
I've heard the name. Yeah.
similarly, kind of a brain injury, had to overcome it, and went on to really, I mean, it ended up really propelling him to greatness because he had a mental framework that said, I can move beyond this. It's not going to be a stumbling block. It's going to be a stepping stone, to use your metaphor.
Yeah.
So you go to a company comes and they want coaching. They have some vision of what they want to be. Talk us through that whole process. We'll get into the exact formula,
Yeah.
but imagine someone's coming to you for the first time, because some of the folks who are listening to me are starting their own businesses, trying to figure out how to do what they do. And like you, frankly, like me as well, not willing to accept that 65 is going to be retirement. Like,
Boom. Come on.
like you, I don't have a 25-year plan. I've got a 10-year plan that I put together when I was 56. So I get that. So
Yeah.
clients come to you. Let's start sort of from the beginning. Where do you meet them? How do you take them? How do you help them?
Yeah, it's really good. So we first of all find out, do they want to grow a company, and do they want to get to where the business works for them, or do they just want a secure job? So we differentiate that, in what we call our 10-minute call. We qualify call. And then if they qualify to be hungry enough to really grow a business, and we need them to be at least a 5X desire, but we preferably like for them to have a 10x desire to go from where they are to where 10 times. And so we'll bring them through what we call a growth plan. A growth plan is a plan that they'll spend $2,500 to have us analyze their business, the strengths, the weaknesses. We get real clear on their 3-year goal, and then we actually create a pathway of concrete, tangible action items, in designing a blueprint for them to get to that level here. And then if they want to work with us, we'll work with them for 3 months, and as the initial commitment, and we'll actually implement that blueprint. So for years, I was a coach, Will, that would tell them, do these 7 things. These are 23 things to incorporate, get together with them the next week. And did you get those things done? No, I'm too busy. My hair is on fire and I'm trying to survive. Right. And so we converted our coaching business into a do it for you coaching business where we do most of the work. And then, if they want to go on with this blueprint to have us implement that, we will implement it. If not, they can go and implement it themselves. Now, what I will say is a little bit of a precursor. Anybody that's listening to this, watching this, if they want to get a growth plan, we can, if they give you a 5-star review, I need for them to give you a 5-star review on your podcast or whichever station they've got you listening on. We love Will. I need to see something about we love Will, and Will's the smartest PhD the most practical PhD I've ever met. Right. So they got to say something positive. And then what we'll do is we'll waive that $2,500 fee. Okay. Excellent. And boom, but they have to identify themselves with you. But so we start them off on that. We create a coaching pathway. And in the first coaching meeting, we actually build a business model for them to look at their business with a whole new set of eyes. Instead of doing it this way, we get it more towards a business model geared more towards their capacity. Yeah. And we do the marketing, we do the sales, we help with the hiring, we do all the key elements for them to begin to conform to that new way of doing things, where they get on track and they stay on track for that 3-year goal.
When you say capacity, let me ask you to clarify, because when you say capacity, do you mean their individual capacity as a business owner, their business capacity, both?
Yes. Yeah. And yes. So like, here's a typical example. Let's say we have, like a service business. They may service commercial or residential. We'll say an electrician. And they say, hey, listen, we have myself and another guy that's a journeyman electrician, and we're cranking out $20,000 a month. Okay. Well, we'll actually break it down. And I know, because I've helped probably at least 300 electrical, contractors. Right. It's one of the areas we specialize in: plumbers and home builders and remodelers. But yeah, any business. I mean, we work with any business. And so we'll actually build a business model, and I'll predict that we'll get real close to each one of those electricians can be producing $25,000 a month. So our first goal is to get them from $20,000 a month to $50,000 a month. Yeah. And that actually creates a lot of the profit they need to, that we don't want people borrowing a bunch of money to grow their business. We believe that what we set up in the first 3 months can actually begin to do most of or if not all of the funding of the growth to get them going. Does that make sense?
It totally does. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So it's helping them look at each transaction and measuring it. And it's amazing. And I know you probably have studied some psychology and psychosis and the power of the mind. When they look at life to say, you know what, we can just create $10,000 a month in revenue and we're fine by that. Right. But if I show them a whole new vision to say, you can easily create $25,000 a month, each one of you, and that won't be that. So usually within those 3 months, we get them from their old reality to actually living in the new reality. So that's the first step. So just changing the way they look at what they're looking at. I like to define leadership as improving your looks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
it's
love
not
that.
so much what you look like in the mirror, although, it's probably good to keep that up. It's how you look at what you're looking at. And so that's the challenge.
I love that. And is that is that your growth system the power to create? Is that what the book is about?
Yeah.
So let's get into the book and talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
please. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna get this real quick.
Please. Yeah.
I did not know we were going to talk about it, but we do have I'm not trying to sell this, but just to verify, we do have a Power to Create book, and then I've got a curriculum where they can go through a number of sessions. But this actually outlines our coaching methodology, a lot of the coaching methodology in that.
Okay. Okay.
So now I will warn you, Will, just for people, if they get it, which I welcome them to get it, and they get a hold of me, I can send them a signed copy, whatever they want there. But it is it's a biblically based.
Okay.
It's kind of a faith-based perspective. I don't shove anything down anybody's throat here, but it's really a treatise on wealth and money and work and purpose. And it's very liberating. I've just had a lot of people write me on that, but I wrote it for business owners that are kind of faith-based and also pastors of churches. I wrote it for both kind of leaders of organizations. So I want to,
no, that's great. No, we get a lot of people here, and because of my network, a lot of people are coming out of that background or from, or in that part of the world. And that's great. What I was excited about, and the reason why I wanted to talk about, or want to ask you some questions about it, is because you listed one of the benefits as enabling people to serve others. So I'm wondering, like, if
you did some reading there. That's good. That's impressive.
So I'm wondering if you can reflect, like, we're going to get back to the growing the business part of your work in just a minute, but I really want to reflect, like, how do you enable people to serve others? Like, as businesses grow, how do you imagine them serving others, serving the world, helping people in need, things like that?
Well, let's take one step back, if you'll allow me, Will.
Please. Yeah.
What I do in the book is I redefine wealth. Now, wealth to a lot of people it's a great thing. It's the attainment of money and possession and properties, and we all want wealth, but we have kind of a cognitive dissonance, because when you talk about wealth, well, how did that person become wealthy? Well, they cheated people, and wealth ruins people. And so we have a lot of, almost like we're double-minded. So part of the book is to help redefine what wealth is. So I redefine wealth, not so much as the gathering of money or goods. That is a good definition of wealth, but I redefine wealth as a creative process that flows from you rather than something flowing to you. So it's creating something of value to serve other people. So you lecture your students. You go in and you help companies in an M&A to merge their cultures without destroying each other, so that the merger is successful. That's you're creating value to serve your customer. So anytime, whether you're sweeping the floor, or you're transplanting a heart, or you're selling property, you're creating a service or a product to serve that person that you're wanting to serve. So if you focus on increasing your serve, and I love tennis, so it's like, you want to have a powerful serve. You want to really focus on your serve. So that's what wealth really is. And I've taught this on the outskirts of Aquagana. I've done it in the in a small island, outside of Manila in the Philippines. I've done it in Moscow, and believe it or not, in Kiev, Ukraine, and
Wow.
St. Petersburg. And I've done it all over the world. I've done it in a housing project in New York City, in Queens, New York.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing applies regardless of your economic condition.
I love that. I love that. And do you see, this is a loaded question, I'm going to admit it up front, but
yeah, please.
do you see a correlation between people wanting to serve others and business success or business growth?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a totally loaded question, but I'd love you to reflect on it.
And so you know the answer to that. I'd probably be just as curious hearing your perspective on that.
Yeah.
Adam Smith really tapped into something when he published a book, in the year that people in the United States declared independence from King George. And so, it's The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. And he talked about really, it's almost a selfishness that drives the economy, but there is a serving other people so that you'll get a better return, and so the more you serve people, the happier they get. And I believe that creating wealth is creating a renewal stream. All right.
Yeah.
I work with all the companies and say, what's your renewal stream? Well, I build houses, so it's a one and done. Okay, well, let's build some renewal streams on that.
Right.
And as we begin to it's like Sam Walton taught me, sat down, and he's a good friend of mine, Sam Walton. No, I never met him, but I wish I would have. He would have loved me. I know it. Name dropping there. Pretty insecure, I know. But he helped me understand that wealth is creating a buying club. And so buyers are people that are excited to get more of what you've served before.
Right.
And so the better you serve people and the more profoundly you meet their needs, or the easier it is for them to do business with you, the more they're going to come back and get more of what you have. And so that's the growing of a business.
Yeah. Yeah. And why do some of your, because I'm sure as good as you are, you have some folks who come to you and they're just not able to take advantage of what you've got for them. And then I'm sure you've got some just explosive growth stories. What do you think is the difference? What separates those two? I realize it's not a real clean, like there's this group and that group, but generally what separates the group from those who can't quite take advantage of what you've got to those who use it and just, it's like,
there's a lot of things that we can talk about on that.
Yeah.
One, there's a story that my key mentor taught. He taught about a guy that built his house on the sand and a guy that built his house on the rock. And and then the storms came and the house on the sand was destroyed. The house on the rock, they had a party that day. That's my interpretation. And so you think, well, what's the real lesson in that story? What's the foundation? Well, what's the foundation? And my mentor taught what the foundation was. Says the guy that built his house on the sand is he that hears my sayings and doesn't do them.
Right.
The guy that built his house on the rock is he that hears my sayings and he's a doer. And so the key thing here is being a doer. Right. So we have a do it for you coaching program, but it's also a do it with you. So there's some things that we need to have them participate. And there are some people that are just, they just sit down. So we'll get limited success on them, because we guarantee results and this and that. So we guarantee it to the result. If they did nothing and we did everything, we can still reach that. Right. And so that's the difference, is being a doer of it. A lot of it is really, Will, it's having the fire of desire. How bad do you want it? Yeah. And you remember in high school, if you're in sports, the coach would, it's not about how comfortable you are, it's how much he can push you to get in shape. I used to be a wrestler, and we do, at the end of a wrestling practice, we do 300 push-ups, actually 6 sets of 51 push-ups, 306 push-ups. And that made us tough in the third period. I mean, you just got to have the fire, desire, the want to do it. And then you got to be a doer. You got to do it.
Yep.
I hope that's not too simplistic.
It's not at all. It's not at all. But I do know, and I do know that a lot of the folks who tend to tune into my podcast and listen to what I'm talking about are also interested in, like, how do you build? I know we sort of referenced team before, but like, how do you build a team to help you do that? Because what I see in the few entrepreneurs I work with, work mostly with, tech executives and things like that. But of the few entrepreneurs I work with, they often don't know how to even know where they need help, and then how to get help to build a team. So they have a great idea. They have a really strong capability in a particular area, but they have difficulty operationalizing it into a business because they don't know how to build that team. How do you help people build teams?
Okay. So we get, and I've actually built, I was with Coopers and Lybrand, PricewaterhouseCoopers now, and doing a lot of consulting. I was with a software company. We ended up selling to Intuit, so I know about the tech and growing that. And here we work with a lot of contractors and service-based businesses, manufacturing, retail, every kind, but just mostly service-based. And so we help the owner get real clear on what they need that person to do.
Yep.
And so we get really clear expectations. Now, what happens is there's usually a lack of training that the owner, their hair's on fire. They're trying to get to the end of the day. And they're when they show up, they're the only ones, when they show up, the whole company shows up. So, they don't have time to train. And so they get people in there, and then there's no accountability. And so what we do is we help people get real clear on what are the expectations, and then to set up to say, owner, you do that job probably right now if it's early in your game. And so make sure you don't just have that person, you do a few of these transactions so that person can watch you. Most of us learn kinesthetically, just we see it, we do it. And then we have at least a weekly do loop, feedback do loop. There's another story, a parable about, the guy that went away, but before he went away, he gave one guy like five bags of gold, another one 2 bags of gold, another one 1 bag of gold. And when he came back, he had the servant come and give account for his performance.
Yeah.
And that's largely lacking in the development of a team. Is we think we have to do it all and we have to outline everything. No, you give ownership to the person there, and you have them say, here's what you wanted me to do. Here's what's green and here's what's red. And any expectation or measurement, KPI, key performance indicator, it comes up on a weekly basis. It's either green, we met it, or it's ahead of schedule, or it's red, we didn't meet it. And it's you get real clear on that red and green. And then the person says, hey, here's a red area, and here's what I'm going to do to turn this into green. You push ownership down on them. But what a lot of people do is when they start to build a team is they don't have a regular meeting time for that person to give account for their performance. And it's in the measuring of the performance. Peter Drucker taught you and I both this. It's in the measurement of the performance where people improve.
Yeah. It is interesting with the other hat I wear in helping corporations to change, usually around mergers and acquisitions. It's often true that there's KPIs for all kinds of financial things and all kinds of other maybe project-based things. There's not a ton of what I call people KPIs, like how do you think this person's actually going to be changed or different? What does decision ownership look like? Things like that. Those are often missing.
I would see, Will, that somebody would hire you if the only thing they hired you for was, say, help us have meaningful and measurable people KPIs. Who does that?
Not many. But I think what we're finding is we're in the midst of if whether there's really a great resignation or not, the point is there's a lot of turmoil in the job market and people feel
Right.
more empowered to shape the work they're doing, to start businesses, things like that. And certainly a lot of people listening to me are those kinds of people who are off starting their own ventures.
Right.
And some of it is just because they recognize this, valuing people, valuing culture. Those are really critical things,
Yep.
not just to how I do my work, but how I want to live in the world.
Yeah.
So
Really being intentional.
yeah,
That's really the, I read through books with a number of clients and a number of people that I'm mentoring, and I'm going through Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning again, and just the whole logotherapy and the processing of when you're brought down to the base, just survival of you as a human, what remains. It's amazing the power of intentionality and how a lot of us run from it, but when we embrace intentionality, it's meaning really comes. It's not just the pain pleasure principle, it's the meaning, it's the pursuit of meaningful living, intentional living. So
absolutely. And Frankl's my go-to. I couldn't be a bigger fan of Viktor Frankl. I even have his 3 ideas for meaning on my wall right over there. So
yeah, that's great.
I give a lot of credence to Frankl in terms of shaping my thought. So here's our final question, which is, if the world could take more advantage of you and the Growth Institute and the work you're doing. We didn't even get a chance to talk about your nonprofit work, which I'm sorry about, but we'll have to have you back for a separate one.
Yeah, it'd be fun. It'd be fun
just about that. But if the world could take advantage of what you give to the world, of how you contribute, how could it be? How can you imagine it being better?
Well, we're in the process of 10xing our coaching company, and it's a pretty sizable coaching company. We've got about 150 clients we meet on a weekly basis, and so I know the more people that I serve, the more I'm going to introduce them to these processes, the more they're going to implement these processes, the more they're going to allow us to implement these processes. So I want to try to make the world better by expanding what I do. And we'll probably get some more books written. This is a 250, 300 page book. So I'm gonna probably knock it down to that same book down to maybe 3 or 4 or 5 books into about 50, 60 pages a piece, so that people can actually read through them in one setting. And but yeah, and if people wanted to take advantage of that growth plan, they can email me, Tim at Redmond Growth. You can look me up, Redmond Growth Consulting, or Tim Redmond Tulsa. Our SEO is actually pretty good, or we're wrestling some with Google, but if they'll just email me, Tim at Redmond Growth, and just say, hey, would you waive that $2,500 growth?
That's such a great offer. Thank you.
We'll set that up. I really need them to identify you, and I really want them to just say, hey, Will's awesome. Here's a 5-star review for Will because he's helped me think. So
that's interdependence. That's helping each other succeed. So that's a great place to close. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate your presence and your wise words, and I really am excited to share you with my listeners. So
very good. Look forward to it. Thank you so much, Will. Appreciate that.
All right, you bet.